I've gotten to play a lot of Hazard recently, and while he's going to be gone by the time this video goes live, he will be back in about a month or so. So I wanted to take this time to talk about the things that I liked and the things that I didn't quite like with this character. And to be honest with you, before I even go into this, the majority of this is going to be good. In fact, the bad stuff that I'm going to talk about is really inconsequential, or really more like quality of life things that I think they can improve. But for the majority of it, I really do like this character. There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff. He feels really, really fun to play. I think they have done a really great job on these first impressions that I've gotten. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the stuff that I thought was good. And of course, as always, I think that the character design and the acting, the voice acting, just the general vibe of the character is very good. I know a lot of people kind of think he's similar to other tanks in his visual design, or he's a little bland. I like the silhouette. I like his, his color scheme. I like the cybernetics. Is he the most unique character ever? Visually? I mean, that's debatable, obviously, but I think he has a strong enough visual style and a unique silhouette, which I think is very important, especially if you're going to have some things that are a little similar to other tanks, like the general upper body being larger, and other abilities that are similar to characters as well. So overall, I really like it. I know that's not everyone's opinion, but I'm totally here for it. But getting into the gameplay, I'm a tank player. I like Doomfist, I like Junker Queen, I like Winston, I like Orisa, minus Fortify. I like a lot of tanks, and I will play a bunch of them. I love this guy. I think this is some of the most fun I've had playing tank, especially in Overwatch 2, of course. There is just so much you can do in this character. There is so much decision making, but also mechanical skill as well, and we'll talk about some of those. But it is so satisfying to not only like make the right call, make an interesting call, kind of think about your decisions and your surroundings, and make, combo your abilities in such a unique way, but also being able to execute them, right? There's a lot on this character. There's gonna be a lot of growing pains for a lot of people. You'll see definitely some wonky mechanics here and there, but when you get it, when it actually all comes together, it feels so satisfying to get work done on this character, mainly because I don't think he's very easy, and I also don't think he's really that good overall. He is a jack of all trades character, but it does feel like he's a bit of a master of none in many regards. So when you actually do execute the game plan properly, he feels just so good. It feels so satisfying. I really, really, really love that about this character. With that in mind, speaking of mechanics, let's talk about some of the there's a lot of mechanics you can do with this character, I think, and some that we're going to discover later on, but the big one being like the B hop you can do after the jump. I think that is actually really important, and putting it in your play is going to be crucial. But also there's a couple of different things you can do, like his leap will always go a certain distance. If you're on the ground, it'll go about like 8 or 9 meters if you're holding back. But if you're in the air when you start your leap, it'll actually go maybe, I think it's like only like 5 meters or so, which is a very big thing. That's like another good thing you could do in his game plan, to have like closer range pressure. You don't have, you can get more damage when they're super close to you. You can combine both of those. You can B hop and do a shorten to like super extend the time that you have before you slash, which I think could really be useful in trying to bait out a Suzu or a Lamp or something, thinking that you're going to hit them with a really big burst, your big combo. And then you've actually gotten it out, and then you just do really big damage after the Suzu, or you do it to the Lamp so that BAP doesn't get as much value from it. There's a lot you can do with this character, I think. He can play around a lot of different characters and counters as well, which I really like. Game feel, although he has many similar abilities to other characters, he has some sort of type of wall, he has a leap similar to Winston and Doomfist, he has a block similar to Doomfist and Ramattra. he has one of the most unique game feels I have ever experienced with an Overwatch character, mainly because you are allowed to be fully actionable during your jump, which I think is really weird to get used to right away. But it opens up so much stuff. It opens up a lot of combo potential. It opens up a lot of possibilities. He has so many options available to him out of a jump that you can really outplay your opponent, psych them out. It is so interesting to me that they've kind of made this decision. And it gives him a lot of kill threat and everything. Like, I really like the feel of this character. On top of just, the projectile wall is such an interesting ability. It's a very important ability that can be eaten. So it's not just like free value. It can be blocked by shields, which I think is a really important aspect of it that makes him not so good into other shield tanks as well, which I'm going to talk about in a different video. But it is really just so fun. He is so unique. I think it is a disservice to say that he is Doomfist light or just like another tank like that, because he really isn't. He really does play in such a unique way. Anyways, another good thing about him is that he's a shotgun-esque character, but he really isn't good at shooting tanks at all, really. His wall can't really wall them off very well. He just doesn't do a lot of damage to them either. If you do a full round of shots to the head of any character, it only does about like 140, which is not that much, to be honest, because you're supposed to be comboing it with your slash and even melee, right? But to tanks, that's nothing. In fact, shooting tanks really feels bad on this character. He does not want to interact with them basically at all, which I think is really good. It's good that a shotgun kind of character actually is not going to be very effective against other tanks. I think that is pretty good design, and it will encourage people to shoot other characters, shoot the squishies, which I really like. In my opinion, all of his abilities also have decently clear counterplay. You can stun the jump, you can boop the jump, you can do a bunch of stuff with it, even though it's up very often. It's not the fastest thing in the world. You could totally react to it. I think that is very likely you'll be able to react to it. With the block, his block, the projectiles, you can eat the projectiles. You can mitigate the projectiles in any way possible, right? Same thing with the wall. You can block it. You can eat it, right? So nothing that he does is ever going to get free value. At least, against most characters. I think there's a couple of characters like Zen, who is probably going to struggle against this guy in particular. But for the most part, a lot of characters have a lot of different things that they can do to mitigate what this guy is trying to do in most of his abilities, and that is great, right? And there's actually a couple of different counterplays to his ult as well. Shields and mitigation also stop the needles. We were testing this, so Rein Shield, if you hold it up like this, it'll block it. A Winston bubble, you'll be totally fine if you're in it. D.Va can eat them above people so they don't get stuck. So she could probably, if there's an ally in front of her, she could DM and then DM up herself so neither of you get caught, or vice versa if they're behind you. A lot of different stuff that you can play around this character, which is kind of why I think he feels a little weak in some regards. But it's what makes him fun, and that is very good. And I guess that brings me into my next point, right? Even though he has a lot of CC and a lot of abilities that he can use in a lot of different ways, he doesn't really feel unfun or unfair to fight against. I have played a lot of Hazard into Hazard, but I also took a lot of time to play DPS and support into Hazard, and I never thought he was just like an overwhelming presence that I couldn't do anything about. In fact, when he killed me with like wall or something, I did feel more like I had messed up rather than this character had really gotten me, right? It's like, I should know that the projectile is going to be coming to block off the wall, right? I can even react to that more because it's not like Mei where she instantly puts it up. It has to have a travel time. I have to be, I also have to be careful about where the wall is, right? I need to be watching where the projectile is going as to not back into it, right? And of course, even just like the jumps and the stuns, you can react to a lot of his stuff, which I think is really crucial. And it's just fun, right? I think also, crucially, the CC abilities, they don't knock back that far, and they also don't do that much damage because you have a bunch of them that you're supposed to be comboing into each other, which is great. That is really good. It doesn't feel bad, but it allows this combo character to have a lot of tools and a lot of potential while not being frustrating to fight against, which, a lot of characters who I think are fun and have a lot of decision making with their combos, like Ori or somebody like that, they've also got a really big stain on their kit for being uninteresting to interact with and all of that. Which we'll talk about one bad with the block later on, but for the most part, all good there. I want to talk about Jagged Wall specifically because, like Maywall, it has a lot of different uses and is straight up, like, right now I'm thinking it's one of the most fun abilities to use in the game, just because there's so much you can do with it. It's more dynamic than Maze. It can go so far. The knockback on it, you can like combo, like you can knock people into the wall and then the wall will knock them back to you, back into a better effective range for you. There's just so much you can do with it. I just see so many opportunities, right? Like you could throw it at a wall, knock somebody into you, hit them, kill them, jump up the wall, get up to the high ground. Like, the world is your oyster with this ability, just like Maywall, but of course it's different. I don't think it has as much health. It's not as big, which is crucial. There's a lot to it. I think it has been really well done, and there is one thing I'll talk about later that I don't like about it, but for the most part, super fun to use. Very, very good. A good thing about this character, I know I talked about counterplay. It is very easy to get your jump knocked back, and that is really bad for his game plan. And I think that's good because it's there's a lot of easy counterplay, but consistent counterplay against this character about his engage, right? So it's not like he's like an immovable object. He is very easy to disrupt, right? You can force a bad jump, force block, basically make his uptime go less because he's got a lot of uptime. But that's a whole other story. He has a lot of uptime, but minimizing his uptime is very consistent and good to do. So there is counterplay to this character. Lots of it. It's very, very good. Yes, and also his kill threat is tied to the jump. So that is like the crucial thing that you need to be able to consistently counterplay, in my opinion, right? And the way that his abilities work, you could even like wall your entrance, B-hop around your wall, stuff like that, so you've completely blocked the LOS but still get that threat. There's so much you can do on this character, right? The abilities all have multiple uses. They don't do everything at once. Block is a little debatable, but I think there's a lot more you can do for like ammo management and just extra damage, DPS uptime that might not get the full value of the block, but you might need to use it. Obviously, we already talked about wall, but leap, any kind of leap like that is going to be extremely versatile. And since you have so much freedom of abilities and stuff, that just adds to it even more. The ult has, to say that has multiple uses, I think it's a bit of a stretch, but it's not just like you use it in one situation, right? The ult's a little more limited in comparison to the rest of his kit, but that doesn't matter so much to me because ults are much more infrequent, right? If the general gameplay loop is engaging, then the ult being a little less so isn't as bad to me. But we'll talk about the ult a little later. And the last thing I have here is that he's got very cool ammo management. I talked about it a little bit, but it's very easy to run out of ammo on this character. So it's a really big skill to make sure you're watching it, making sure you're using your block effectively. Maximizing your damage. Like, you use all your bullets and then you're in the fight still, so you're getting damage while you're blocking, getting your ammo back, and then using that ammo you got back to keep your aggression up. Like, his uptime is really high, and managing your ammo is going to continue to keep your uptime as high as you need it to be. It's a really interesting skill. I really like it. It reminds me, you know, how Ashe has to like really manage her ammo because she's got a lot of downsides with it. Him, it's more so that he can have a lot of ammo and keep his DPS up, but if he doesn't do that, he's going to really suffer in what he can do. And I think it's a fun gameplay loop on top of all the other decisions that you have to make with this character. So that is my list of the things that I really like. This next part is just going to be the things that I'm not so sure about, or are kind of just like interesting to point out. They're not necessarily a good or a bad. Which we'll talk about the jump. You know, I talked about how it's so cool that you can you're fully actionable during it. It is a weird muscle memory shift, knowing that you can actually do things while you're using the leap. You know, like Winston and Doomfist, they can't. So getting used to that was a little strange. Fun tip, make sure you are doing a primary shot before you do your slash. You are going to extremely maximize your damage. End it with a melee, so you do shot slash melee. That does a lot of damage. I don't think it's quite 250, but it is almost there. And if you combine it with a wall follow-up or just a shot follow-up, you've got it, right? Or a block follow-up too. That's a really consistent way to get the kill. Anyways, but it is a weird muscle memory shift, and it took some getting used to. I have not, you know, tried swapping between like a Winston or a Hazard or a Doomfist or Hazard to see if I'm like using the wrong muscle memory, but you know, that's something to definitely be weary of when you are swapping characters with this guy. With being fully actionable, there are some potentially really nasty guaranteed kill setups that we may find in the future that we probably should be mindful of. There's a lot you can do. There's going to be a lot of different tech and a lot of abilities you can use. So just be wary that there might be some cheesy things found with this character that I can't exactly call it bad yet because we haven't figured them out yet. But it does lead me to believe that there could be some broken abilities that they may have to tune down what you can do during leap, which might not feel as satisfying in the end. But we will have to see on that one. Hopefully somebody finds it early so we don't, you know, have to play with this really fun version and get like a neutered version once everyone's used to it. Let me see. Oh, the ult. Right now, it doesn't seem very good, which is probably a good thing. It's not really annoying since you can move around and use all your turn around and use all your abilities during it. But it's not very interesting, and it doesn't quite fit into his kit as much as I would like it to. Yes, of course, you stun them so you get more consistent like jump ins and damage and everything, and that's always great. But you know, they can like turn their back to you and hide their head and stuff. Like I don't think it's very good, and I think that's like a hard CC like that is probably a good thing. I wish it was a little more interesting, but again, with the ult being not so interesting, I don't really mind it that much. Because the rest of his kit is so fun the majority of the time, and the ult, it fits in okay, right? Like it's not like out of place per se. So whatever on that. Oh, here's something. The graphic for the ult, when you activate it right, it kind of puts it like this is where it could go, right? It'll show you that initial one, like BAP window, like Maywall, like this is where it could go. But then you hit the button and it'll show you where it's going to go, right? It'll change, it'll like change the color a little bit, change the transparency, I think, to make it like, this is where it's gonna go. That's when the enemies are about to see it. The problem is very, like during that phase where it's like, this is where it's going to go, you can still move your camera. And you can thus like move the ult and where its direction is. And to me, if I'm locking in where I want it to go, or at least I think I'm locking in, I don't know if it just does it after a couple of seconds, to be honest with you. But if it reads like it's a locking in where I want it to go, it shouldn't be able to move, right? Like Queen ult is, you know, she'll charge up and you can move it and then go. But for him, it doesn't feel like you should be able to do that, and it's really hard to get used to, in my opinion, because the graphic is kind of showing a different story. So in my opinion, I think that they should change the graphic either to not solidify it until it's actually going to go to like exactly where it's going to go, or I mean, I don't want to nerf him, but if you just weren't allowed to go, then I think that's perfectly fine. Like if you weren't allowed to move during it, I don't think that's that much of a problem. Although again, it's not very good and it is reactable, so I don't think that should be the solution. But that's just something like, it's not necessarily a bad, it's just one that it's, again, it's hard to get used to, and I don't quite understand the decision there. Last thing I've got for like the category, the relatively low knockback of its abilities makes it easy and more consistent to combo with yourself individually. But to be honest, I have had very hard, like I've had a lot of trouble trying to get my teammates to understand that this is something that they can follow up on, right? Because the knockback isn't as insane as like a Wrecking Ball or a Doomfist punch or something, which, you know, when you punch or fireball somebody out into the open, your team definitely understands like this person is out of position, right? But on ladder, you know, with the much lower knockback, I think a lot of people don't quite understand that this person, there's a smaller window to kill this person, but you can kill this person. And that is like, again, it's not like a good or a bad, it's just like an interesting thing where I think this character is going to play a lot better in like, even though he is very individual, I think that aspect will play a lot better in organized play. But for right now on ladder, it feels like you should not be trying to set up for your team because the window is really short and it may not, you know, if you're not communicating at all, they may not recognize it in time. If you're talking to your buddies or talking in voice chat, different story. But yeah, it seems a lot more personal, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But that is just something I've noticed. So when you play on ladder, you may just want to play a little bit more for yourself, less so than trying to disrupt their position for your teammates to follow up on. But that may change later when people start really playing with him more. Okay, and finally here I have the bad, and hopefully I can give a little bit of like constructive feedback to like fix what I don't like, and a couple of these I don't think there's anything you can really do about it, which kind of sucks, and I'll talk about those. But, you know, the first thing I want to talk about is that there is another Overwatch wall climb. I have no problem with wall climbs, and of course it's not really like full wall climb, but I have no problems with wall climbs in general. I just think that the wall climb coding is, you just saw one right there, it's a little wonky, and it's a little inconsistent, and I don't really like how it is implemented. You know, there's a lot of times where you feel like you're getting up to the ledge, but there's like a tiny little increase of the slope where it goes a little higher above your head, and then you just drop off the wall and stuff like that. And I think with Hazard, it does happen as well, especially since you can't go as high. It feels like it happens more often than most with like Kiri and Hanzo. So I don't know how you fix that, but I will say, like, as a bad, it is the jumping, the climbing, it is just not as consistent as I want it to be. Getting over ledges is fine. It's the wall climb itself that it's just not really there, in my opinion. Another thing is that when you use slash, especially when you do like a 180 slash, a lot of times it looks like it connects, like there's an extra visual flare, like a little cut in the screen that happens when it connects, but it doesn't. And I don't know if that is a visual thing or if that always happens, but to me, when that plays, it looks to me like it has supposed to connected, but it just doesn't. And it feels bad. Like, it does not feel very good when that happens. It feels kind of like unresponsive, and like there should have been more to it. So yeah, not great. Again, I don't know how you really fix that, but if there's any way to make it consistently, like you only get the cut when you actually hit them, that would, I think, be the best solution there. So like another like graphic type of thing. Guard. I think Guard is going to be his like most controversial ability overall, just because it does a lot of stuff. And it's on a resource, you have it up a lot. It might be a little too much easy value. There's a lot of cleave you can get out of it. And also, the reduction is really high. I don't know if that's quite as high as they want it to be, because it does, I think they want his uptime to be high, but it really makes his uptime really, really high. Now, his super like high kill threat uptime is not that high. You know, it's based on his leap, but he is doing a lot, drawing a lot of attention, drawing a lot of aggro, and doing damage as well. So I don't know. I think maybe if they lowered the damage reduction a little and then like made the reload a little faster so that you're encouraged to be more aggressive and be a little more in and out. I know they want him to be a little like in the fight more than a Doomfist, but that might make it a little more engaging. And with guard as well, slow characters with less mobility, they are not going to have a fun time against this character, because literally the situation that it's going to be is that he is going to jump, he is going to shoot / melee, that's going to do the majority of your health bar, and then he's just going to hold block. And they're not going to be able to interact with him or stop him, and that's just basically like a free kill. Like, I'm thinking like a Zenyatta or something. Like, you can't do anything about this guy. If you kick him away, he's just going to shoot you. He blocks your Discord, is not going to do enough damage to save you. You know, that kind of stuff, right? And there's going to be a couple characters that, like, yes, you know, if you misplay your abilities, you know, like, let's say Illari does a bad burst and he jumps on her, sure, but I think that is a little ridiculous, especially, like, I think it's the worst for Zen because his hitbox is so big, or his hurtbox, rather, is so big. I'm sure there's also a couple of, like, sniper characters who, if he can get onto them, it's going to feel bad, but also I think the longer range DPS are much better into this character, so it's not that much of a problem. But I can see a world where that is just not interesting, not fun. So I would like to point that out as well. And then the last thing I have is the knockback of the wall. I love the knockback when it gets there, right? I think that is a really good idea. I think that is great. I think it feels really good. The knockback while it stays on the ground is interesting. I like what you can do with it, but playing against it is not very fun, to be honest with you. Because a lot of times you'll lose track of the rock and you don't know where it is, and you're like, what is happening to me? Why am I getting like knockback? Why can't I go anywhere? It's because the rock is there. It's doing damage to you. It's just annoying. It's got a bigger range than I think it should, and that also leads it to like mess up your jump or mess up your movement ability because you think you're out of range of it, but it'll still hit you. Maybe a little better visual indicator would be great. Or maybe like a sound. I don't know if it makes a bit of a sound right now, but more of a sound to let you know that it's like in the vicinity, that it's going to be doing anything to you. And also it's a little inconsistent with its physics. I think when you're wall climbing on it, it will hit you, but it won't knock you back to make your wall climb consistent. So that is strange. I don't know if that counts for Kiri, Hanzo, Genji, but definitely for other, for other hazards, I've noticed that. Really, really strange. I like the idea behind the wall and letting it stay out for a while, but to be honest, it doesn't quite feel great to play against. And that's kind of like, you know, block and the wall. I do like those abilities overall, but I do think there are a couple of things that could be greatly improved. I say greatly. They could be improved with them. I don't think any of his abilities are perfect right now. We definitely have a lot to, you know, consider about like what we really want this character to be doing and what he's really effective at, which I'm going to make a video kind of breaking down his place in the meta. But I'll talk more about that then. But, you know, he's got a lot of stuff he can do. But again, he's kind of like the master of none, and I think he's going to be a much more niche situational pick on certain maps. I don't think he's going to be particularly good all places. I think there's going to be a better option most other places. But I'll leave it there for now. That is what I think. If you like this video, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. But I do want to hear back from you. What do you guys like about this character? What do you not like about this character? Any aspect of him, you know, gameplay, visual, even like his story, you know, his backstory. I'd love to hear back from you guys. Like the video while you're at it. I really appreciate it. I stream live twitch.tv/LaneHemingway. That's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. This week, I'm not going to be live. It is a holiday. I will be gone for the majority of the week. So sorry to all of you, but I will be back next Tuesday if you want to get in on those discussions live. And if you want to talk about all things Overwatch, please join my Discord down below. Is in the description. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Please have a good day.